Gangs in Chicago are responding to the influx of migrants, especially the Venezuelan migrants that have formed their gangs down there. And apparently, it looks like the GDs is beefing with the Tre Araguas, if that's how you trade de Aragua, something like that. I might not be pronouncing it correctly, but y'all get what I'm talking about. We got violence in the streets of Chicago already. Y'all already know how I feel about Chicago. I mean, it's so deadly over there. But if there was any place to put these gangs, it would be Chicago. It would be Chicago. Let's tune into the video and see what's going on.
America has allowed gangs to enter our country.
The migrants that are coming, they're taking over every block right now.
The city of Chicago is gonna go up in smoke, it's gonna go up in flame.
Gangs in Chicago are angry over the influx of migrants and criminals in their city. They say money that should be going to the African American community on the South Side is instead going to what they call non-citizens, and warn that turf wars between Chicago's gangs and groups like Venezuela's Tren de Aragua could see Chicago, quote, go up in flames. Photographer Matt McDermott and I traveled to Chicago's South Side to see what was happening for ourselves after we heard about a police report last month that the Tren de Aragua gang had taken over an office building there. We spoke to a number of young, hardcore gang members, as well as gang elders who have retired from the life, and just regular citizens who are very much part of the community. And they're all furious at the estimated $500 million that's reportedly been funneled toward new migrants in Chicago since 2022. And they aren't happy either about what they say are Venezuelan criminal gangs that are leaving the shelters and spilling out into the South Side into abandoned buildings. I spoke to Tyrone Muhammad of Ex-Cons for Trump, who runs a street patrol and violence prevention program. He's gone straight since his days as an enforcer for the Gangster Disciples. And he said the situation is very tense on the South Side as turf battles between the local gangs and Venezuelan migrants heat up.
It is impossible to release gang members and criminals into our country through the borders and broken walls, and then infiltrate them in our community that's already impoverished, that's already broken, that's already disinvested. And when the black gangs, the leadership in the black gangs in Chicago get fed up with the illegalities and the criminal activity of these migrants or non-citizens, the city of Chicago is gonna go up in smoke, it's gonna go up in flame, and there's gonna be nothing that the National Guard or our government can do about it when the bloodshed hit the streets.
I agree 100%, man. It's already super violent in the South Side of Chicago. You already gotta clutch your purse if you're a woman walking the streets. You already gotta look behind your back if you're a man walking down the street, because you don't want to get shot at and you don't want to get robbed. And for them to now put all these gangs in the same area, in a place that these Chicago gangs, by the way, they think that they own the block. So they name themselves after street names. Listen, it's a whole different beast in Chicago, okay? It's a whole different beast. And this is unfortunate. I don't want to see so many people going out dying like this. Honestly, I'm sick and tired of seeing it, and I hope that it gets better, obviously, but it's obviously it's trash culture, trash behavior that we've seen. And at the same time, I don't want to see them all die out, but they gotta go somehow. And listen here, again, this is the toughest part about this. All they talking about is black people. They ain't talking about white people. They ain't talking about Indian Americans. They're not talking about Chinese Americans. They're saying black people are upset, which means the gangs are from black people. The gangs are in the black culture. And they're the ones that are fighting against these Venezuelan gangs. It's not a mixture. It's not, you know, maybe this guy is in there, maybe that guy is. No, this is where's Black Lives Matter? Where's Black Lives Matter? In all this, right? And all that happens in Chicago, you don't hear any Black Lives Matters coming to the table saying they need to stop the violence in Chicago, in Oakland, in New York. These black on black violence, these gangs, these deadly gangs. You never hear it. You never hear it from them. But honestly, it's because it's not profitable. It's not profitable for them, and it does not help them. It does not help them, honestly. It's sad to say, but it's the truth. But let's continue, man.
Blacks against migrants.
Zach Massey did time in state prison with Tyrone Muhammad, although he's only 27. He's a leader on the streets and said he's disgusted by the money going to Venezuelan migrants at the expense, he says, of the African-American community.
I finally actually talked to him on the translator app, and he told me all the things that he got going on, how they help him get a car, apartment, clothes, link. So it's just like, I just be looking at it like, they ain't got no social security number. Where they come from? He probably not even here legally.
They get right here, they get quick housing, quick funding, food. They get cars with no license. They can't even read English and stuff like that. So they get all these perks when they get here, and we still here starving. So what we gonna do about it? Are y'all gonna listen to our cries?
Corey Rogers.
Listen, there was a big town hall meeting a couple months ago. I forget the man's name, but he came up there. He gave his heart out, and it was a black man, an older gentleman, one that's been there a few times, and he's always saying what he gotta say. But he came up there and he said to the people, y'all are giving away so much money to these migrants, these people that are now coming in, forgetting about the community that was already here, that was already suffering, that was already struggling, not giving them a dime. Eventually it's going to turn into a war, because these people are struggling even more than the migrants now. That's why crime is so high down there. That's why there's so much robberies going down out there, because the people are poor AF down there, and they need help. They've been needing help. They needed housing. They need food stamps. They need shelters. They need clothing. They need it all too. And y'all are not even looking at them anymore. You're just letting them shoot each other in the streets. Eventually something's going to click with them, and they're going to be like, okay, let's take our anger and put it towards the migrants. And that's exactly what it looks like is happening. He called it a few months ago, and this is crazy, but it's coming true. It's coming true. Let's continue.
Was a Blackstone gang member for years. He drove us around the South Side and showed us areas where he said Tren de Aragua and other criminal gangs are setting up shop, and what he called showing the flag, which means brandishing their weapons in front of like a housing project.
The migrants that are coming, they're taking over every block right now in this area. Right now you don't see them because they come out at night. They said they took this courtway over probably about last week. He said it was 100 Venezuelans standing out in the front right here.
Terry, is it an abandoned building? How do they just take it over?
They just, when you take over something, you just stand outside, and that's called showing the flag.
What kind of guns
Semi-automatics, anything you name, you're gonna see it on the street. These boys got so many big guns that if they're 150 pounds, the gun is bigger than them. I swear.
But they know how to handle it, right? They know what. Tell me about the fact that they're criminals, right? This is a criminal element. These aren't just a bunch of Venezuelans that walked over the border and used to be gardeners back home, right?
Right. They come from the gangland. They come from rougher gangs than us.
One gang member, who only gave his name as David, on a particularly dangerous drug dealing corner on the South Side, did not hold back when he talked about the influx of criminal gangs from other countries into Chicago.
The real issue is that America has allowed gangs to enter our country. Gangs that they would consider terrorist groups that are formed here. We are terrorist groups if we're in a gang. They let terrorists in our country.
The Reverend Corey Brooks also said to me, he says,
Now, hold up. If he's a gang member and he's talking to the news, I'm so confused with what's going on here. I'm so confused. Man got a whole blunt in his hand on the news talking about they're letting terrorists in to their gang streets. So now and they're terrorists because they're a gang already. Like, what the heck are you talking about, bro? Come on, man. We got to do
disgusted
better.
with Democratic policies and said that Black Lives Matter, for example, has never reached out to help him or anyone else trying to improve conditions.
You see what I mean? You see what I mean? Black Lives Matter evaporated after George Floyd. It didn't really care. They didn't really care about Black Lives Matter. They cared about themselves. They got their money and they got their pocket change and they out. You don't even hear about Black Lives Matter no more. And people are still getting killed every single day in these streets. Every single day. And that's sad, man. We call it out, man. I give them props for saying this out loud too.
On the South Side.
Chicago is a blue city. Illinois is a blue state. There's no doubt about it that the majority of our neighborhood, they're going to continue to vote Democrat until they wake up. The good news is that there are a lot of people who are responding and waking up and saying, listen, we're not going to take this. We're not going to stand for this. We're going to vote differently. And they're now accepting some of the values that I hold dear and some of the values that the conservative Republican Party holds so dear. And so for a lot of people, it's not about the person, it's about the policies that we're fed up with. And as a result, I think this is going to be the largest amount of people who have voted for a Republican president in Chicago that we've seen.
I also spoke to one Venezuelan man who was so scared of being identified that he put a hoodie on and refused to face the camera. He told me in Spanish that he had to flee the building where he was being housed because a Venezuelan criminal gang took it over. He said if they knew he was talking, they'd end his family's life back in Venezuela with one bullet. You know, what struck me the most about our week in Chicago was how intelligent and self-aware these gang members and ex-gang members are about their community. You understand when you talk to them that joining a gang and making big money selling drugs is often too tempting to resist when faced with the lack of other real opportunities to make money. And for a place known mostly in news stories for being bloody and violent at night, the area is like a village during the daytime. Everyone knows each other, and believe it or not, there's a friendly vibe. But we spoke to a lot of people, and their patience is being stretched thin. I would not be surprised to see the gangs here taking action once the Venezuelans try to get a real foothold here.
I won't be surprised either. And shout outs to the New York Post for getting in-depth content, getting on the streets, and talking to the actual gang members in Chicago, on the South Side specifically, because we do know that is where most of these gangs are at. That's where most of the violence is happening, is on the South Side of Chicago, the poorest side of Chicago. And we got to be honest here. It's not easy being down there. I know it's not easy being down there. And if the opportunity is not there to make money, obviously you're going to look for other ways to make some quick cash. And it's a bad cycle that they're pretty much in. It's a hard cycle to get out of, but the truth is there's always a way to be out of it, and there's always a way to avoid this. So, you know, they actually are putting themselves in this situation at the same time. The parents, the families that are there, the community that is there, the government that is there. They are putting and keeping these people in the situations that they are in. And I understand why they're upset about another gang coming in their hood, that they did not, check. You know how it is in the hood. You gotta check people that come into your block, make sure they good and see where they from, if they not the enemy. But it's very interesting to see what is going to happen here. I would not be surprised also if there started becoming a gang war between the Venezuelans and the GDs and the Bloods and all those other gangs that are already in Chicago. I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised. But we'll see what happens. Y'all let me know y'all thoughts down below in the comments. This was a very interesting video. Shout outs to the New York Post for this one. Let me know y'all thoughts, man. It's your boy Dgotsauce. Hit that like button on your way out. Hit that subscribe button if y'all are new. And until next time, man. Peace.